No, he's got it. He's good. All right, but Marty says we're live, so am I on there now? All right. All right. I was almost about to say Shabbat Shalom. I'm so used to doing that from this position. All right, Rosh Chodesh Sameach. All right, Rosh Chodesh Sameach. What month is it? Adar. Adar 1. Okay, Adar 1. We're going to get another shot at Adar in a month. We get to do this twice. So in case you mess this one up, you get a do-over next month. Hey, it's just nice to know in advance. We get 2 of them. So if you don't have a great Adar 1, you got an Adar 2. Hey, it works out. All right. If you have a great Adar 1, just keep the momentum going. Okay, just don't mess it up. Okay. So what we're going to do tonight is something a little different. It's our first time trying to do a Torah study and we did Rosh Chodesh here before, but Rosh Chodesh combined with a Torah study. Are most people moving over from Adobe Connect to get over here? Robert? All right, so they leave themselves in the room and then they go over to the chat. All right, if you're on YouTube watching me and you left yourself in the Adobe Connect, it would be helpful to Robert if you would just go out there and close yourself out of the Adobe Connect. All right. Also, if you got them both open, you'll hear an echo, 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 echo. Sorry. Which could be a little annoying. All right. Actually, it's really funny. The very first time we ever live streamed, one of the people that was connected with us in another part of the country or the world called us up, and I said, yeah, I just want to make sure it's working. The streaming is the first time we ever streamed. He said, yeah, but there's a weird echo. He hadn't realized he accidentally had it open in 2 windows. It was very funny because I'm thinking, we tried everything to fix the technical. Oh, what's going on, the technical difficulties? Oh, no, he had 2 windows open. All right. I'm just stalling a little bit just to make sure. So we have mostly everybody over, you think, Robert? Mostly over there? Okay. How many people do we have on the YouTube? 90? Oh, that's pretty good. Well, welcome to all of you. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight, a little bit different. So we're going to start off with a Rosh Chodesh service for Rosh Chodesh Adar. And then after Rosh Chodesh service, we're going to go into our Torah study. But I have some interesting surprises for you, so hang in there for after the Rosh Chodesh service, okay? And so we'll go into that. All right. Now, we're doing it here on YouTube because the Adobe Connect was a little bit of a challenge. It still allows for us to have the connectivity where you guys can type into the chat and talk to each other, and we can still interact with you with a microphone like we do on Shabbat. The only thing that we can't do is have those out there read the scriptures and then have it go over the microphone. We don't have that worked out yet. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and begin with our Rosh Chodesh service, if you'll all rise. And actually, I'm going to blow the sound of the horn from here, and then I'll take my mic over there. Okay, we'll start with the sounding of the silver trumpet. I think the ram's horn works better. Or the kudu. This one must be broken. And when Rabbi Steve gets back, he'll blow it better, okay? So, Okay. See, it's about blowing the silver trumpet, not being a maestro at it. Okay. So we're going to do the whole service from here on is going to be screen driven, so you can switch to the screen. And we're going to read these things together. We'll begin with Psalm 51:15. Yahweh sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Yahweh, open my lips that my mouth declare your praise. May the expressions of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, Yahweh, my rock and my redeemer. Also in the day of your gladness and in your appointed times and in the beginnings of your months, you shall blow with the trumpets over your burnt offerings and over the sacrifices of your peace offerings, that they may be to you for a memorial before your Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Kedushat Levanah, sanctification of the new moon. O Yahweh, our Elohim, and Elohim of our fathers, make this coming month one of good and blessing. Grant us long life, a life of peace, of good, of blessing, of sustenance, of vigor. A life marked by a reverence for you and a dread of sin. A life free from shame and reproach. A life of prosperity and honor. A life in which love of the living Torah and the fear of Elohim animates us. A life in which our heartfelt desires are fulfilled for good. In the name of Messiah Yeshua, Amen. Okay, he who performed miracles for our fathers and liberated them from slavery to freedom, may he quickly liberate us and gather our exiles from the four corners of the earth, and let us say, Amen. The new month, the new moon of the month of Adar 1 is today. May it prove to be good and fruitful for all 12 tribes of Yisrael. Amen. May the set apart one, blessed be he, grant this Rosh Chodesh to us and to all his people, for life and peace, for gladness and joy, for deliverance and consolation, and let us say, Amen. Blessed, praised, glorified, honored, and exalted be the name of the King of Kings, the set-apart one, blessed be he, who is the first and the last, and beside him there is no Elohim. Extol him in the heavens, Yahweh is his name, rejoice before his face, his name is honored beyond all blessing and praise. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever. Let the name of Yahweh be blessed forever and ever. From Isaiah 66, verses 22 and 23. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make stand before me, declares Yahweh, so your seed and your name shall stand. And it shall be that from Rosh Chodesh to Rosh Chodesh, and from Shabbat to Shabbat, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahweh. Amen. Amen. Okay, you all may be seated. I'm thinking I need to practice that silver trumpet a little more. It's not the same as blowing those ram's horns. I didn't realize how different it was. What was that? Oh, I get to do it again for Adar too. Okay, thank you. I get a do-over. Thank you, Sarah, Beth, and Rebitson. That was very nice. Okay. They both reminded me, well, you get to do it again next month. I'll practice. Okay. So, first of all, we are very excited that Yahweh has decided to give us another month. And it gives us, more time to continue to transform into the image of Yeshua and to do the things we need to do through the teshuvah process, the turning around, the changing, the developing his character thing. And as we look at each month, we're to look back and see the progress, and we're going to talk more about that here in a little bit. But one of the things, again, that I want us to embrace is that, of course, as we mark time, it means that we're this much closer to Pesach. Okay, Pesach is just coming up right around the corner. We're getting closer. And so hopefully everybody is going ahead and getting prepared for that. We do have already, I think, just about or right around 100 people signed up already for Pesach. Okay, and that's not bad considering we only put that word out about a week ago. So, we've got a very steady flow of paperwork coming in and people registering. So that's been very good for Pesach. So we're very excited about that. So we do expect there to be somewhere in the 300 person range this year. But just remember that we want you to get your paperwork as soon as possible with your deposit, as well as to make sure to call to arrange for your housing. Okay, and so by arrange for, we just want to find out how many people are coming with you to make sure we give you a room that's the appropriate size to handle the amount of people you have. Bear in mind also, please, I know this is tough. I don't know why this is so tough, but I know it is. I've come to accept the reality that filling out forms is difficult. It's really hard to go beyond just putting your name. Okay, please put your address and your email and your phone number. because we may need to call you or contact you about something to do with your registration. If you have children that are going to be in the MTOI program, we need to have your contact information so that the Rebbitzin, my wife, who's the director of that program, can contact you about the program, okay? So that you be prepared for it in advance of Pesach. So, this is a challenge, I know, and every year we get a lot of people putting their paperwork together. Now, if you're thinking, oh, they know me, please put it down anyway. Don't make us look it up and try to figure out who you are, where you live, and that kind of thing. It's not a hard thing. I don't care if you don't give us both your phone number and your email. Just give us a way to get in touch with you so we can reach you and have you call us back if we need to, okay? After all, we're family. I would think you would be okay to give us your phone number, address, and email so that we can register you. And the address is important, too, because, God forbid, something happens to you. You're registered for insurance purposes, that we can show that we actually had you in our system, that we didn't just have your name, okay, that we actually had you in the system, okay? So that's very important. But we are excited about that. Also, I want to mention that as we are preparing for Pesach, I know it can be a little bit much to go that much forward, but we are also getting ready for Sukkot, and we did go look at a property over this Sunday, Monday. So we looked at it yesterday, and it was very nice. I think it could work, and we just might be able to get this worked out with this new property. And like I said, pricing-wise, it'll be, I believe, very similar to what we're paying right now with the other property. So that should be very good for those of you. Some of you, it may actually save you a little bit money compared to the other one. Some of you, it may cost you a little bit more. I think the way it's set up, it may be, for the people with big families, it'll help really save you some money, which would be nice, okay? And for those who are just a single or a couple, it may just be a little bit more money than the other one was, but we'll see how that could work out. But I think it should be workable. They were very nice. They very much want to work with us. We had a really good meeting. We saw the property, and they've got lots of housing options there, including they have a campground with some RV spots and some traditional tent camping. So we may be able to have a few people do that. Now, they have very few of these spots, so it will be based on the availability they have and how far in advance we book. Because they only have, I don't know, it was like 6 or 7 campsites and about 25 or 26 of the RV sites or something like that. Or 9 and 27 or something. So about 36 spots. So we'll get that information out to you as soon as we can get that, so we can really make sure that we can start booking. Now, normally we would wait till after Passover to put that out there. We may actually get it out before if we can, just because they need to kind of know how many rooms to block for us. This is a big property. This is a property that will have several other groups on property at the same time we're there. Their dining hall could easily sit, I think it sits 1,000. Okay, so even at 400 plus or whatever we're going to be, we're not going to take up the whole dining hall. Okay, the dining hall looked like they are very efficient in the way they have many lines to go through, and they know what they're doing. They've been doing this a long time. This property, just like the YMCA property, has been around for almost 100 years. All the buildings are a lot newer than that. They don't have the historical buildings like they do on the Y property, but they've been around a long enough time that they kind of know what they're doing. So it looked. We had confidence after being there that they would be good at what they're doing there. Okay, so the good news is that we don't have to have the stress that we've had in the past of trying to find a feast site. I think we found one. So we're still in the negotiation process. Please keep that in prayer so that we can get through that successfully. Okay? All right, I'm trying to think if there's any other things to announce here prior to Shabbat. I think that should probably cover it. And so more information about that will be coming. The main thing is, I know that some of you are thinking, well, Passover is still a while away. We only have 103 rooms, okay? And they're filling up pretty quickly. And so please contact us to make sure that we're getting you your rooms. And your room, by the way, is not officially yours until I have your paperwork and your check. We'll pencil you in if you call. But that's all we're doing if we don't get the paperwork and check. So you have to kind of get these things to us pretty quickly to make sure we get everybody in there. All right? Okay. After all, I'll tell you what. I normally, I don't even put in my own paperwork. Sometimes I'm usually the one counting for everything. But since I have Stacia doing the accounting for it, I actually filled out the forms myself just to set the right example. Okay? And I know he's out there watching. And if my friend Uncle Bob can do this, and he got his in first, man, anybody can get theirs in. And he doesn't think I'm picking on him. He knows he's notorious for having his in late. And he impressed me and got his in first. So let's go ahead and get our paperwork in, please. All right, it does help us plan for, especially with the children, to make sure we get enough of the materials for the crafts and everything to know how many children are going to be participating in the program. All right, any questions about that? Nope? Okay. All right, so what we're going to do now, okay, because I was thinking, this is our first time. This week's Torah portion is Terumah. What does Terumah mean? It means contribution offering, okay, right? What do we say every Shabbat? Hamaaser v'hatrumah. The tithe and the offerings, okay? So that's how this Torah portion starts. But this Torah portion is the one where the teaching, follow the pattern exactly, comes from, okay? So if you want to get an in-depth understanding of this Torah portion, you can go back and listen to previous archived versions of the Torah portion, or you can listen to the teaching called Follow the Pattern Exactly, because we're not going to go through the Torah portion as you expected. And I'll tell you why. Because, and hopefully you'll be excited about this, maybe you won't. Some people might just tune out thinking they don't like the idea. I think it's a great idea. There's something happening tonight that hopefully we're not missing a lot of people because they're busy watching it. The president is giving the State of the Union. And several years ago, actually 5 years ago, I did a similar thing. I gave the State of the Body. And it was our 2-year anniversary as a congregation, and now it's our 7-year anniversary. And since it's the same night the president is doing it, I thought it may be good to take a new, fresh look at the state of the body. Okay? So, we are still going to read the Torah portion. It's only 5 readings, and that way we will have done our duty tonight to read the portion publicly amongst our brothers. Okay? As far as discussing it, like I said, I think it's covered very well in previous archives as well as the teaching, Follow the Pattern Exactly, which comes primarily from this place. Exodus 25:9 specifically is what launched me into the idea to do the teaching, Follow the Pattern. Okay? And so we'll get to that today. And so we're going to go ahead and do the readings, and then we'll go ahead and take a few second break while I get my other papers out, and we'll go into a discussion of the state of the body. And also because it's been our 7-year anniversary, and 7 years is the number of perfection, completion. So we've had 7 years. That means that we're heading into 8, which is new beginnings. And so we have some exciting things coming up. So I think it's a really good time to look back a little bit and see where we are, where we've been and where we are now, and talk about the future a little bit. Is that good? Amen. Okay, all 3 people in the room said yes. Okay. We have a lot of people that work third shift. It's okay. Now, so we do have a camera that will come around and zoom in on whoever's going to read. We do have 5 readers picked out. I apologize to those of you online. We don't have a way for you guys to read at this point. I know we do that usually every week. And so I will still recite the blessing over each reader, and I will tell you what verses you are reading. So why don't we go across? We'll start with Catherine, then Wayne, then Sarah Beth, and Rebinson, and finish with you, Manny. We'll just kind of work our way across. All right? It'll be easiest to do. So we do need David, come grab the mic, and we'll bring that over to Catherine. Thank you. Catherine. And then she could just pass it to Wayne, and then we'll bring it over here. Okay, that'll make it easy to flow across the room. Okay, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may bless Catherine, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. All right, Catherine's going to take us into Exodus 25. By the way, we're going from 25:1 to 27:19 for the whole thing. And she's going to read, you know what, my phone just made a noise. If you have a phone on like I do, you want to make sure to turn that off. There we go. All right. She's going to take us from Exodus 25, verses 1 through 20. 1 through 20.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, that they take up a contribution for me. From everyone whose heart moves them, you shall take up my contribution. And this is the contribution which you take up from them: gold and silver and bronze, and blue and purple, and scarlet material, and fine linen and goat's hair, and ram's skin dyed red, and fine leather and acacia wood, oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil, and for the sweet incense, Shoham stones and stones to be set in the shoulder garment and in the breastplate, and they shall make me a set-apart place, and I shall dwell in their midst. According to all that I show you, the pattern of the dwelling place and the pattern of all its furnishings, make it exactly so. And they shall make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high, and you shall overlay it with clean gold. Inside and outside you shall overlay it, and you shall make on it a molding of gold all around. And you shall cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them in its 4 corners, 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other side. And you shall make poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold, and shall put the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark, to lift up the ark by them. The poles are in the rings of the ark, they are not taken from it, and into the ark you shall put the witness which I give you. And you shall make a lid of atonement of clean gold, 2.5 cubits long, and 1.5 cubits wide. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold, make them of beaten work at the 2 ends of the lid of atonement, and make 1 cherub at one end, and the other cherub at the other end. Make the cherubim from the lid of atonement at its 2 ends, and the cherubim shall be spreading out their wings above, covering the lid of atonement with their wings, with their faces towards each other, the faces of the cherubim turned towards the lid of atonement.
Amen. Amen. Okay, next up is Wayne. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Wayne, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Wayne, now take us from verse 21 to the end of chapter 25.
And you shall put the lid of atonement on top of the ark, and put it into the ark, the witness which I give you. And I shall meet with you there. And from above the lid of atonement, from between the 2 cherubim, which are on the ark of the witness, I shall speak to you all that which I command you concerning the children of Israel. And you shall make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long, 1 cubit wide, and 1.5 cubits high. And you shall overlay it with clean gold, and make a molding of gold all around. And shall make from it a rim of hand breathed all around, and shall make a gold molding for the rim all around. And you shall make for it 4 rings of gold, and put the rings on the 4 corners that are at its 4 legs. The rings are close to the rim as holders for the poles to lift the table. And you shall make the poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold, and the table shall be lifted with them. And you shall make its dishes, and its laters, and its jars, and its bowls for pouring, make them of clean gold. And you shall put the showbread on the table before me continually. And you shall make a lampstand of clean gold. The lampstand is made of beaten work. Its base and its shaft is cups. Its ornaments, knobs, and blossoms are from it. And 6 branches shall come out of its sides, 3 branches of the lampstand out of one side, and 3 branches of the lampstand out of the other side. 3 cups make like almond flowers on one branch, with ornamental knob and blossom, and 3 cups made like almond flowers on the other branch, with ornament knobs and blossoms. So for the 6 branches coming out of the lampstand, and on the lampstand itself are 4 cups made like almond flowers, with ornament, knob, and blossom. And a knob under the first 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the second 2 branches of the same, and a knob under the third 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches coming out of the lampstand. Their knobs and their branches are of the same, all of it one beaten work of clean gold. And you shall make 7 lamps for it, and they shall mount its lamps so that they give light in front of it. And its snuffers and their trays are of clean gold, and it is made of talent of clean gold with all these utensils. So see and do according to the pattern which was shown to you on the mountain.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Wayne. Okay, bring the microphone over here to Sarah Beth, David. Okay, Wayne's bringing it over, no problem. Okay, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Sarah Beth, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, go ahead now into chapter 26 and read verses 1 through 17.
And make the dwelling place with 10 curtains of fine woven linen, and blue and purple and scarlet material. Make them with cherubim, the work of a skilled workman. The length of each curtain is 28 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits. All the curtains having one measure. 5 curtains are joined to each other, and 5 curtains are joined to each other. And you shall make loops of blue on the edge of the end curtain on one set, and do the same on the edge of the end curtain of the second set. Make 50 loops on one curtain, and make 50 loops on the edge of the end curtain of the second set, the loops being opposite to each other. And you shall make 50 hooks of gold, and shall join the curtains together with the hooks, and the dwelling place shall be one. And you shall make curtains of goat's hair for a tent over the dwelling place. Make 11 curtains. The length of each curtain is 30 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits, one measure to the 11 curtains. And you shall join the 5 curtains to themselves, and the 6 curtains by themselves. And you shall double over the 6 curtains at the front of the tent. And you shall make 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that is outermost in one set, and 50 loops on the edge of the curtain of the second set. And you shall make 50 bronze hooks, and put the hooks into the loops, and join the tent together, and it shall be one. And the overlapping part of the rest of the curtains of the tent, the half curtain that remains, shall hang over the back of the dwelling place, and a cubit on one side and a cubit on the other of what remains of the length of the curtains of the tent is to hang over the sides of the dwelling place, on this side and on that side, to cover it. And you shall make a covering of ram skins dyed red for the tent, and a covering of fine leather above that. And for the dwelling place you shall make the boards of acacia wood, standing up. 10 cubits is the length of the board, and a cubit and a half the width of each board. 2 tenons on each board for binding one to another. Do the same for all the boards of the dwelling place.
Amen. Amen. Okay, next up is Rebitz and Julie. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rebitz and Julie, who's come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family, and send blessings and prosperity in all the works of her hand. Amen. Okay, take us now from verse 18 to the end of chapter 26.
And you shall make the boards for the dwelling place, 20 boards for the south side, and make 40 sockets of silver under the 20 boards, 2 sockets under each of the boards for its 2 tenons. And for the second side of the dwelling place, on the north side, 20 boards and their 40 sockets of silver, 2 sockets under each of the boards. And for the extreme parts of the dwelling place westward, make 6 boards, and make 2 boards for the 2 back corners of the dwelling place. And they are double beneath, and similarly they are complete to the top, to the one ring. So it is for both of them. They are for the 2 corners. And they shall be 8 boards, and their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under the one board, and 2 sockets under the other board. And you shall make bars of acacia wood, 5 for the boards on one side of the dwelling place, and 5 bars for the boards on the other side of the dwelling place, and 5 bars for the boards of the side of the dwelling place for the extreme parts westward, with the middle bar in the midst of the boards going through from end to end. And overlay the boards with gold, and make their rings of gold as holders for the bars, and overlay the bars with gold. And you shall raise up the dwelling place according to its pattern, which you were shown on the mountain. And you shall make a veil, and you shall make a veil of blue and purple and scarlet material, and fine woven linen, the work of a skilled workman, made with cherubim. And you shall put it on the 4 columns of acacia wood, overlaid with gold, their hooks of gold upon 4 sockets of silver. And you shall hang the veil from the hooks, and shall bring the ark of the witness there behind the veil. And the veil shall make a separation for you between the set apart and the most set apart place. And you shall put the lid of atonement upon the ark of the witness in the most set-apart place. And you shall set the table outside the veil, and the lampstand opposite the table on the side of the dwelling place toward the south, and put the table on the north side. And you shall make a covering for the door of the tent of blue and purple and scarlet material and fine woven linen made by a weaver. And you shall make for the covering 5 columns of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold, their hooks of gold, and you shall cast 5 sockets of bronze for them.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Okay, you're going to bring it over to Manny? I like that I don't have to click the mouse to turn my mic on and off and have to wait for that delay. All right, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Manny who has come up to honor Yahweh and the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Manny's going to be the last reader here. He's going to take us now into chapter 27 and read verses 1 through 19.
And you shall make a slaughter place of acacia wood, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. The slaughter place is square, and its height 3 cubits. And you shall make its horns on its 4 corners. Its horns are of the same. And you shall overlay it with bronze. And you shall make its pots to receive its ashes, and its shovels, and its basins, and its forks, and its fire holders. Make all its utensils of bronze. And you shall make a grating for it, a bronze network, and shall make on the network 4 bronze rings at its 4 corners, and shall put it under the rim of the slaughter place beneath, so that the network is halfway up the slaughter place. And you shall make poles for the slaughter place, poles of acacia wood, and shall overlay them with bronze. And the poles shall be put in the rings, and the poles shall be on the 2 sides of the slaughter place for lifting it, making it hollow with boards, as it was shown to you on the mountain. So they are to make it. And you shall make the courtyard of the dwelling place for the south side screens for the courtyard of fine woven linen, 100 cubits long for one side, and its 20 columns and their 20 sockets of bronze, the hooks of the columns and their bands of silver. And so for the north side in length, screens 100 cubits long, with its 20 columns and their 20 sockets of bronze, and the hooks of the columns and their bands of silver. And the width of the courtyard on the west side, screens of 50 cubits, with their 10 columns and their 10 sockets, and the width of the courtyard on the east side, 50 cubits. And the screens on one side of the gate, 15 cubits, with their 3 columns and their 3 sockets. Excuse me. And on the other side, screens 15 cubits, with their 3 columns and their 3 sockets. For the gate of the courtyard, a covering 20 cubits long of blue and purple and scarlet material and fine woven linen, made by a weaver, 4 columns and 4 sockets. All the columns around the courtyard have bands of silver, their hooks silver, and their sockets bronze. The length of the courtyard is 100 cubits, and the width 50 by 50, and the height 5 cubits, woven of fine linen thread, and its sockets of bronze. All the utensils of the dwelling place for its service, all its pegs, and all the pegs of the courtyard are bronze.
Amen. Amen. I appreciate that, Manny. Okay. Now, I didn't bring with me the closing blessing. I left that home. Sorry. So we will have a closing blessing. We just won't do the traditional one. I probably could do it from memory without making a mistake, but I'd rather not make a mistake. So, Father, we come before you. We want to thank you and praise you for the living Torah that we have in our midst, for loving us so much as to give us your word and to give us an opportunity every week and every day to study that word and to have that word then become a part of us. So, Father, we want to thank you, praise you, and give you all glory and all honor in the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 Awesome. Thank you to all you readers. Appreciate that very much. Okay, so all 6 people clapped. Okay, good. Now, hey, listen, it's not about the numbers. We're here all enjoying this together, and we're just blessed to be here. Okay, so let me just point out a few things for you with the Torah portion so that you have a little bit to kind of work with and chew on. These are parts of the things that you would get in the Follow the Pattern teaching, etc. But there are a few things here that we want to talk about. So first of all, because everybody would be very upset if I didn't talk about money at least every time I open up my mouth. Let me just roll my, for those of you that can't see me, I'm rolling my eyes. Okay. In verse 2, it says, speak to the children of Israel. In 25, chapter 25, verse 2, speak to the children of Israel that they take up a contribution for who? Me. Who's the me speaking? Yahweh. Verse 1 says, and Yahweh said to Moshe, saying. So who did contributions go to? The ministry? No. The ministry receives them. These are contributions you're making to Yahweh. He says, take up a contribution for me from everyone whose heart moves him, and you shall take up my contribution. So it's a heart issue. From everybody whose heart moves him. By the way, when they did this, they ended up with so much, they had to actually tell them to stop. They brought too much. Can you imagine? Can you imagine ministry saying, please, we can't take any more. All right? But that's what happened. So that's important. But just recognize, see, you could be reading this Torah portion. And you could very easily say, oh, yeah, he's telling them how to make this and how to make, okay, we got rings and we got poles and we got curtains and all this stuff. And what's the point? So they're building a tabernacle. So what do I need to know about that today? Well, the thing first starts off with your heart and your contribution that you give. Then it goes into the starting of a description, and it gets to verse 9, which really is talking about the idea that we're going to do, well, actually, verse 8. What are we doing? We're making a place for him to dwell in our midst. And we're told in 1 Corinthians that don't you know that you are the dwelling place? And then we're told in verse 9 here that the dwelling place needs to be built exactly according to the pattern shown on the mountain. Exactly do it so. What else was given on that mountain? I don't know, the Ten Commandments, the rest of the Torah. So we should be building our tabernacle according to that, I would guess. That's my premise in the teaching, follow the pattern exactly. You actually see this repeated in verse 40, where it says, so see and do according to the pattern which was shown to you on the mountain. Okay, so we're given that pattern. Now you could miss that and think he's just talking about building an ark to put the witness in, or building the tabernacle. But no, it's a metaphor for us. And so what we like to see and hopefully get out of that is that details matter to him. He wants certain things. Now, of course, he doesn't tell you about everything in life in this book. He doesn't tell you about everything he created in this book in all its detail. But some things he says, this is how I want it done. So we don't just say details matter. We want to make sure it's his details that matter. Not the details you think are important, but the ones he thinks are important. Can we be clear on that? Okay? And so then we have back in chapter 25, verse 11. Let me go back down there. And it talks about that this is about putting clean gold inside and out. You shall overlay it. So there's this idea of clean gold. Everything actually that he said to make, he pretty much said, and you shall cover it with clean gold. He didn't just say gold, but clean gold. So how do you make clean gold? With fire. You have to smelt the gold, and you have to take off the stuff that the impurities come and rise up, and you can get that out of there, and you get this pure, clean gold. But it's a process of putting it through fire. So you may want to go listen to the teaching called Baptism of Fire and understand when he talks about fire, he's not talking about some charismatic thing. Okay, I'm not trying to mock them. I'm just saying it's not about what the charismatics think. It's about what he thinks, and what he thinks it's about is a purification process. Testing, proving, cleaning out the junk. Okay, and then in verse, let's see where I went after that real quickly here. And then in verse 16, he says, and into that ark. Okay, so now we're building this tabernacle exactly according to this dwelling place for the witness, exactly according to the pattern. You're going to put the witness in it. We have lots of verses that we talked about in the heart of the matter in other places where he talks about laying up his Torah in your heart. So we're going to place the witness. He says you are to place the witness into that ark. And then, which verse did I want to go to? 19, I think. Nope. 21. Okay? So then he says you're going to put the lid of atonement on top. So covering this ark or this body or this dwelling place, it should be covered with the idea of atonement. He says you shall put the lid of atonement on top of the ark and put into the ark the witness which I give you. Atonement, at one mint, filled with repentance and relationship building, that you would be at one with him. You're covering the whole thing with that idea, with that thought. So the head, the crown, the thinking process, the lid should be filled with atonement. So hopefully you're starting to see the metaphors, the pictures that, that are being developed here. So I think that's very, very important as we go through the process. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to cover here. I think that's all I wanted to cover just for that quick overview. But just as you go through this, just recognize that the more you're reading a section of Scripture that just is not catching your attention, and maybe you're thinking, oh, blah, blah, and you're bored and you're yawning, etc., then you might need to either prayerfully ask him to show you or go find a teacher in the teaching that can show you what you're missing. Because there's not just one level of understanding in this book. Okay, on the very simple Peshat level, the Peshat is a simple level of understanding. Yeah, he's giving them instructions on how to make this ark and how to make the tabernacle. All the details. How to make it down to what kind of wood to use, what kind of cloth, what color it should be, how many cubits wide and long and how many lengths, etc. How to fold over the extra over the back of the tabernacle and all these different details. And so he's very detailed. And so he wants us to understand. But you could also miss that there's deeper stuff. So we start looking at the remez or the hinted at. You might look at the drash or the allegorical. You may look for the hidden sewed level of stuff. But be careful, without a guide, you can end up in all kinds of very bizarre places, as there's a lot of teachers out there teaching some very strange stuff because they decided to dig deeper than they were properly trained to do. Let's call it that way. Okay, and a lot of us like to do that ourselves because I've had people come up to me many times, and we're going to talk about this a little bit in the next part of this, but I've had people come up to me many times saying, can you recommend something this way or that way so I can get more or deeper into this? I said, have you figured out how to walk yet? No. Then why do you need to go deeper? Do you have the two great commands under control? Can you figure out how to love me and how to love him? How to love each other and love him? You might want to work on that. Why do you need to go deeper? Oh, but I need to learn the paleo and all of the other things. Why? Now, I'm not against you doing that. But I promise you can get the same level of understanding that you need to walk without it. Now, it may make your walk or your understanding of your walk clearer or deeper in some level. If you do that, I get that. That's fine. But he doesn't expect you to be a Bible scholar. This wasn't written only to the scholarly. As a matter of fact, it wasn't written to the scholarly at all. Written to farmers and carpenters and shepherds. People laying bricks and stuff. It wasn't, it wasn't meant for just the educated. So we don't need to have all that. Because some people think, well, I don't understand this better. I just don't have enough. You just have enough what? You have the book and you have teachers. That's why Paul says you need to go find those fivefold ministry guys. You need to find the teachers. You can do this. All right? Okay, so that's going to cover it for now for the Torah portion. I do want to get into this other part. Why don't we do this, Marty? Do you want to create a new video just for the teaching part that I want to do, and I could just put the headset on, or do you want to just keep going? You'll edit it later. Just keep going, use this mic? Okay, no problem. So should I start it off the way I always do? I almost feel like we have the dun, 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 dun. Mr. Speaker, the president of MTOI. No, we're just being silly. We're having fun. Hey, it's a Rosh Chodesh celebration, right? We should have some fun. All right, so today on Rosh Chodesh, because it is the same day that the president of the U.S. is giving his State of the Union address, I thought it would be interesting to do something that we haven't done in over 5 years, which is it's in tongue-in-cheek in some ways, but very serious in other ways, to take a look at the state of the body, but not just the whole body, but the body through the eyes of our little group, through what we're doing through MTOI and through Beth Shalom, and just seeing, because we are, I promise you, it's a microcosm of the rest of the body. There's nothing happening here that's unique that's not happening in other places. The struggles we have, they have. The successes we have, they have, okay? So I'm not aware of what's happening everywhere, but I am aware of what's happening in the places that we do get to have some interaction with, etc. And so hopefully this could be useful, because I think that there's really great benefit to taking a moment. All businesses do it, all successful people do it, where they take a moment to think about how far they've come, where they expected to be by now or not, where are they now, and where would they like to be, and to plan and look at that from an assessment point of view. Then they can plan forward more accurately. You can make adjustments. Because look, we are supposed to be transforming and conforming into Yeshua's image, all right? Amen? I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing, aren't we? Well, I believe, maybe you don't agree, but I think the only way to know for sure if you're getting any closer is to stop, pause, and examine yourself. And examine what you're doing and how you're doing it and how the group is doing as a whole. Because we're not just doing this is an individual endeavor done in a group dynamic. Okay? You're not just doing this by yourself. I know there's a lot of people out there talking about how we should just be sitting at home and just on our knees and Yeshua teaching us privately one-on-one. I don't know how you're going to get those private lessons, but good for you. But the point is, this is meant to be done in a group dynamic. Because you're supposed to be going into a place called the body. We're supposed to be in the process of becoming this thing called the body of Yeshua. This thing called the bride. This thing called, those who are of Israel. Israel is a corporate thing. It's not an individual. Not since Jacob was the only one called Israel. Okay, went from him into the 12, it became a group dynamic, a group thing. And so that's why we're given the two great commands. How to do the individual thing, which is how we love him and treat him, our creator, and how do we love each other, the group dynamic. And he instructs us on how to do both. And so I just think it's a good idea, and it behooves us to examine these things on a regular enough basis. And because this is the 7-year anniversary for our congregation. By the way, we first met on January 14th on Shabbat in 2012. Okay, so it's just a little over a month after that anniversary date would have been. Okay? On January 14, 2012, on that Shabbat is when we first started as Beth Shalom in Chattanooga. Now, we did have a ministry years before that, but this is, we'll just start from here, from where we started 7 years ago. And, since we started, we have moved around quite a little bit. We had one home for a good number of years, and then Father started moving us around a little bit. And during that time, we also had a lot of people come and visit. Some stayed, some left. There's always that sort of flow within the body. Now, of course, the hard part is that we have emotions and we care about people. And sometimes we're very sad to see them go. Sometimes we could actually be really glad to see them go. And that's even probably a harder emotion because we need to probably repent of those things. Okay? The sad part, there's no repentance for it. We become attached, and we're sad to see people leave. But sometimes we're like, praise Yah, they left. No, don't say praise Yah, they left. It would be great if nobody would have to ever leave. Because after all, that's what the kingdom's going to be, is a bunch of people that will all stay together forever. But through our time, we've had quite a few people come through the doors. Some have stayed, like I said, and some have left. And in that process, and out of all of that, I don't know if we want to call it the growing pains of 7 years, but in that developmental process, I really believe that we are becoming a family. Now, some of you are going to go back and listen to Developing the Character of Yeshua. In the first part of that, I did the same teaching, so to speak. And you know what? I might say some of the exact same things I said then, because some of it is still true exactly the same. We're still seeing people come and go, like 2 years ago. Well, 5 years ago, like 2 years into it. We're seeing growth. We're also seeing, by the way, not only are we seeing growth, but we're seeing stagnation. We're seeing regression. Some people are growing. That's great. Some people are going backwards. Not so great. Some people aren't moving at all. They're just stuck. They're just there. And you're the only one that should be deciding where you are in all that. Don't anybody sit here trying to figure out who's growing and who's not and who's going backwards and who's not. Judge not, lest you be judged, right? Let's not try to figure out who the wheat and the tares are and all that kind of thing. What we do want to do, though, is examine ourselves in that individual context and in the group context. Because you may be pretty good at looking at yourself from how are you doing in your worship, submission, covenanting, love of our Creator. Maybe you're doing great at that. But how are you doing in the group dynamic? Now, it's not for me to tell you how I do with or not do with my Heavenly Father, because that's a private thing with me and Him. But I can tell you, and you all know because you've seen it, like everybody else, I struggle at times with some of those issues. We all can struggle with each other. People are hard to deal with, and you are people. Okay, we all fall into the category of people. We are all hard to deal with, you know? People are capable of really wonderful things, but we're also capable of really awful things. We could be cold, callous, vindictive, harsh, mean, uncaring, all kinds of whatever words, controlling. We can be the opposite of that. We could just ignore people and neglect them. We're capable of but on the other side of it, we're capable of so much compassion and love and joy and mercy and generosity. And so that's really the harder part in some ways. Not really that tough to stop eating pork and shellfish, etc., and move from Sunday to Saturday, whatever. But how do we grow up in our dealing with each other? So I want us to be really thinking about that. Now, I will tell you, let me start again. It doesn't matter my opinion, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, okay? In other words, whether I say this or not, it means nothing except I'm just sharing with you. I have been very proud of what I've seen in general, okay? The reason I started off that way is I said, it doesn't matter if I'm proud of you or not. That should not be your point, to make me proud of you, okay? It should be about making Him proud of you. But I'm just letting you know that watching this thing for 7 years and how it's grown and how it's changed and developed and I hate to say the word evolved, but, you know, human beings don't evolve from, you know, creatures in the ocean to become human beings, but we, as a dynamic, can evolve and grow as we adapt and we learn. Okay, so congregations and the dynamic of a group can evolve, and I've watched us grow into a family. Okay? I see people really caring about each other. Of course, because we really care about each other, all the other nonsense sort of comes in as well. Because you know what? If you don't care about me and I don't care about you, I really can't hurt you. The only time, and I watch husbands and wives who really fight bad, somewhere deep down they still care, or they wouldn't be that mad at each other. The harder thing is when they got to the point where they really don't care and they don't even, there's nothing there. There's just cold. But if they're still fighting and mad and angry and hurting each other, well, it's something to work with. So when you start to love each other and you start to really get close to each other, guess what? You're going to disappoint each other. You're going to frustrate each other. You're going to misinterpret something, or maybe it was done on purpose where you're going to hurt each other. And so we got our feelings all out there, and we got to get our feelings bags, you know, pick all that mess up. But meanwhile, you're starting to become a family. Because after all, doesn't that stuff kind of all happen in people's families? Some of the worst, ugliest, some of the best, wonderful things all happen in what? A family setting. So we're becoming a family. And guess what? Sometimes not everybody in the family likes each other. Sometimes not everybody in the family talks to each other. Sometimes not everybody in the family is even in the same space. They move away and avoid each other. But what a joy it is when there's restoration. That's why you got the story of the prodigal son. Because if you had a child that went away, what joy would you have if they came back? Especially if they came back humbled. Because a lot of times they come back with attitude. And they expect you to be codependent with them and to enable them to continue in whatever foolishness they're doing. Because, well, you're my parents, you need to do this. No, but what if they came back humble? I'm so sorry, I don't deserve anything. Could I even just eat the food that you're giving to the pigs, you know? That's a humble. That's a humbling that's gone on. And what's the thing that our Father's looking to do with us? He wants to see us get humbled. And so that's part of the dynamic here. You know, we've seen a lot of struggling and a lot of growth. We've seen a lot of both of those things in the dynamic of individuals that we just talked about. We've also seen that in family structures. Okay, I don't know any time frame where I've been involved in leadership, ministry, etc., where there's not been an attack on family structure, where there's not been an attack on marriages. And by attack, I want us to get into Satan's trying to wreck everything. Remember, and I said this, I think, last Saturday, he only takes opportunity where you will give him opportunity. Problem is, we're not working on these things hard enough, so we open doors for him to get right in there. Are you going to take that from her? You going to take that from him? Can you believe? I can't trust him. I can't trust her. Whatever. Okay, this is where, and he's pushing all those buttons because you got it in you. And now, with the way society is going, with all that confusion, it's only magnified. It hasn't gotten any better. You know, there was about, excuse me, I don't know if it was maybe way back at the very beginning, maybe 18, 19 years ago, I made a comment about the way things are going as far as the sexual, gender, whatever issues we have in this country. And I had said there's a process. Okay, this is sort of part of the state of the body, I guess. This is not in the body, but the body's dealing with it. Actually, it's probably in the body as well. There's a process where we go from something being completely unacceptable, aberrant, whatever word you want to use, okay? Revolting, completely like, don't even want to talk about it, to something that's being tolerated. That same thing then becomes tolerated. Then it becomes acceptable, and then it becomes preferred. We have witnessed that, since I said that statement, we've witnessed that in the whole dynamic about gender in this country. And I'm not making a political stand here, I'm just making an observation. That what was once completely aberrant and not even acceptable has now become preferred. And that's happening in a lot of different areas. And you're watching that dynamic play around. And we've got to be careful that we don't get swept up into those kind of things. And it's not just about that one issue. It can be a lot of issues where things that were once completely unacceptable got tolerated, then accepted, and then preferred. And we have to be aware of that. And we see this in the marriages. Because you know what? There was a long time ago where, it wasn't really very acceptable to people to live together. That was like, people are living together. Well, before I ever was much of a young kid, that had already become tolerated and even acceptable. And then it almost became preferred because people saw that most marriages ended up in divorce. So now it's preferred just to live with each other because then, after all, then you never have to worry about getting divorced. But you see how that has happened. The same thing with children. We've turned into a place where the way that we raise the children, the way children act with each other, the whole dynamic has changed where, look, I don't want to come across wrong. There is real things called bullying that's out there. But some of the stuff that I see calling bullying, I'm like, when I was a kid, we wouldn't have blinked at that stuff. Because we were really getting bullied. Like bruised, beat up, kicked, spit on, bullied. Okay? We did not have a problem with names. You had a problem with names, it usually led to the kicking, the punching, and the other stuff. If you had a problem with it, then you had to find out what the real bullying was. But yet the society is raising our children to be so unable in their sensitivity to process the awfulness that the world can present at times. So I'm not diminishing that these things exist, but we're raising up a society that can no longer tolerate anything. And so our children are losing the capacity. And it's really like a capacity. In other words, a capacity means you have only so much room that you can put something in or you could store something that can handle something. And they have almost no capacity for negative emotions or negative comments. When we live in a world filled with this stuff. And it's overflowing with it, and yet we have children that cannot, they're raised to not handle that stuff. We don't have an ability to handle losing. The number one path to success, guess what it is? Failing. Those who are the most successful have failed the most. They're not afraid of it. But what do? We give everybody a trophy for participating. Nobody loses anymore. Well, it might hurt their feelings if they lose. Good. Then they'll be motivated to win. That's kind of the point. To get some drive. State of the body right now, the body, like the world, is very unmotivated and undriven and complacently just sitting and wallowing in nothingness. In a desperate, desolate mediocrity where they just barely get by. It's an existence, not a thriving. I'm not picking on you if you're in that spot. You are a product of all of this. But scripturally, that's not where we're to be. We should be putting in that effort, trusting His blessing on the effort to thrive. I didn't say dominate. I didn't expect us all to be the elite and the 1%ers. But to not have to stress over, as Yeshua says, why worry about, what you're going to eat and what you're going to wear? Well, we do because we don't have enough money to pay the bills. We stress over all of these things, our ability to have health care, our ability to whatever. Because we've not been given a driving, motivating force. Because our parents don't have it. And so then it's generational. Generational cursing. And then we get mad because the few seem to have everything and the most have nothing. Well, because those few are working their you-know-what's off to have everything. And they laugh and say, we like a mediocre, undriven population, so we could have everything. Well, they do nothing. Well, not that they do nothing. They work very hard, but they do work very hard for nothing. That's not where we're supposed to be scripturally. Because we're going after the greatest prize there is. And that takes a huge effort. But we struggle with it because we're not used to putting in effort. We work hard. That's not the same as putting in effort. Look, they worked hard in Egypt, didn't they? That's not the same as putting the effort to work for yourself, to work to provide for your family, to work for generations. We're supposed to be creating generational wealth. It says if you're not providing for your children and your children's children, you're worse than an infidel. But we don't know how to do it. So I'm not picking on you. Don't give me, there he goes. He's talking about money and everything else. Because you want to get into ministry, guess what 99% of your counseling is going to be? People struggling with their finances and their marriage, and the marriages are often because of their finances. So you wonder why I talk about it? Because that's where the problem is, always. And if the finances weren't bad, guess what? Most of the other problems would be handleable. You would handle them so much better. So we struggle in our families, we struggle in our congregations, we struggle in the relationships with members with each other. We have jealousies, we have cliques that form, we have people that are left out, we got people that are preferred, we got people that are talked about behind their back. We got normal, the world does this, why do we do this? I saw this happening in high school and college and everywhere else I ever was in the world. Why aren't we different? So we struggle in our relationships with each other, but you know what else? We also struggle with our relationship with leadership. And I get both of those. We've never really had a good example of either one. When we were in the world, we saw how people treated each other, and we also saw how leadership treated us and how people treated leadership. So this is why congregations struggle. All leadership, at times, if not always, is under attack by somebody. It's a very funny place to be. I wish that all of you could understand and take this position and be on the mic and be in the front of the room for just enough time to realize how wonderful it is when people think you're awesome and they love you. And in the next 5 minutes, they think you're the worst thing in the world and you're mean and awful and you're beating up everybody, whatever. But you get both probably within 2 phone calls. You could literally get one and then the other. And so you got some people that think that they want to put you up on this ridiculous pedestal, and other people think that they want to kick you in like you're dirt on the ground. But this is what it's always been in leadership. Why? Because we're dealing with people. It's interesting because, and I'm not, hopefully my son can take this properly. My son is going through this point at his age where he's trying to understand global dynamics and how governments work and how things work and what would be maybe an ideal way for people to interact. And I explained that that's why we need Yeshua to come and all those kind of things, because here's the problem. All governments, all structures are always going to be flawed because they're run by people. And we are awful. We are capable of every atrocity and every awful thing there is. And that's hard because, my son has got this hope and this dream and this idealism, which we all probably had when we were that age. And he's only coming to realize that he doesn't want to believe and see that people really are that awful. He's a boy that when he was younger and we were in the car, we'd drive by a homeless person, he would start crying. Because the guy was homeless. 4 or 5 years old, and it really bothered him. Okay? Because he has a heart for that stuff. But yet, it's a harsh reality that I'm trying to teach him that all of us have to embrace is that we, if left to ourselves, which 99% of the time we are, unless we choose to submit under something, we will destroy everything. We will hurt people because we are selfish, uncaring, greedy people. We just want it all for ourselves, and we really don't care that much about everybody else. Not all of you all the time, but I'm just saying that is the group dynamic that devolves into when under no control of authority. That's why we need a king with a rod of iron to come, because we will never get there unless it's imposed on us. Now, people have tried to do it. Of course, it was done by people, which meant that as soon as they got in charge, they did exactly, here's the new boss, same as the old boss, That's really what it's been. Because we have to understand that that's why congregations have problems. That's why, by the way, that's why all of us in leadership, that's why we are as flawed and bad as we are. You may be impressed with my ability to teach, and that's great. I appreciate that. But that doesn't mean I'm not a flawed human being like everybody else. And so I love watching people. Actually, I don't, but you know what I'm saying? It's funny to me that people are shocked when I act like a normal person would act. And I do something dumb or obnoxious or rude or inconsiderate, just like anybody else. Why would you think? Do you not read the Bible? Did Moses make mistakes like that? Almost everybody you read about did something. You're like, really? We hold David up so high. Well, look what David did. I think there's only 2 people you really don't see anything like that about. You don't really see Joseph doing anything and Daniel. But everybody else has got issues. That's not to say that they didn't. We just don't get to read about it. But you're all looking for that perfect leader. Good, find him. It's called Yeshua. But when we read Scripture, when Yahweh says, and make a contribution for me, or do this for me, or do this a certain way, he does it through people, because Yahweh is not just standing here where you see him and you bring him things. He worked through Moses. Did they buy into it? No. Not in the beginning. Right? You got Korach rebelling, and then Dathan and Aviram and all. You got all these problems. Even his sister and his brother. Oh, you, Moses, he talks to all of us. That's the same thing you hear today. Well, Yeshua talks to all of us. We got the Ruach. The Ruach speaks to us. We don't need to go through a person. What, do you sound just like Aaron and Miriam? And I'm not claiming to be Moses. I'm just saying in general. You do that with whoever your leaders are. Whoever's watching this, maybe you have a congregation you go to, and it has nothing to do with me. We just generally do that and not recognize that Yahweh uses flawed human beings to do what he needs to do. And that's the state of the body. The body's not able to handle that. We don't seem to know what to do with that. And continuing also, how many of you have noticed that we have people coming into office in this country and other countries that seem woefully unqualified for what they do? They just, because of whatever their background was before, they really weren't raised and studied to be a politician and to understand government and all the world dynamics or local dynamic stuff. They just end up, because of whatever reason, they're popular enough to get into office. We've seen this over history. A lot of military guys ended up in, generals or whatever would end up in office. Sometimes it's rich people, like in the case of Trump. He's a guy who happen to have a lot of money. But you have all these kind of dynamics of people that end up in office that don't necessarily have any training for it. Whether it's senators, congressmen, governors, mayors, doesn't matter. And yet we have the same problem here in the body. How many of us have seen, not asking for names, have seen enough teachers and leaders that really didn't know what they were doing? They really weren't qualified or trained for their jobs. The body still has this problem. I mentioned this 5 years ago. I'm mentioning it again. The problem is you have to use your discernment listen, let me finish that sentence first. You have to use your discernment to decide who's who and what's what. And you need to get behind the ones that you really believe are trained and are proper and avoid the other ones. Keep them at a arm's length. Because I can't tell you how many times, and if you're watching right now and it's somebody that we talked to this week, we're not talking about you. Well, we are, but we're not. Because we get these calls every week from people that are under another leadership, wherever it is, and they want us to help them understand how to handle their other leadership. It's like, why are you calling me? If you're not under my leadership, I'm not responsible for you, and you're not my problem. Go deal with your other leadership. Well, I don't know how to do it. Then leave there and come under here, and we'll work with you here. Why do you want me to help you? Then we're playing like monkey in the middle. I'm going to talk to you. You're going to talk to your leader. Your leader's going to talk to you. You're going to come back to me. If you ever tell them to talk to me directly, and maybe we can talk. I mean, what else are we supposed to do? Because people get emotionally attached, and they won't leave where they're supposed to leave. And if they do leave, they make a train wreck out of it. They can't just leave quietly and move on. But this is the state of the body still. It hasn't changed. Look, what did Paul say over and over again? Things like, oh, I wish they would, could handle the milk so I can give them meat. But they're choking on the milk. I said in that teaching, and I've said it multiple times, I think if Paul were alive today, they'd have to put him in a jacket in a rubber room. I think he'd be depressed on lithium or something. Okay, because he'd look at the body going, really? Really? After 2,000 years? This is like what I left. And I'm not trying to pick on anybody, guilty, okay? But the human condition hasn't grown or changed very much. For all those evolutionists out there, we've not changed a whole lot. We've got a lot more technology, but our character, our personalities, as far as the way we treat people, treat each other, treat leadership, the way we actually care or don't care, that part hasn't changed very much. We're still just as selfish as we've ever been. And so we see that going on. So now let's go have a little bit of fun. And we're going to start talking about, well, just like the president's not going to do this, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to go through most of, if not all of the departments that the government has. See, I don't know if you understand this, but the executive branch of the government has departments, and those all have heads of those departments, like the Department of State or Education or Defense. And so we're going to talk about these departments as part of the way the body looks. And I don't have them in any particular order necessarily, so they're not alphabetical or whatever. I'm just going to kind of randomly go through them as I happen to put them on the paper that I have in front of me, okay? So we were just talking about teachers. So let's first talk about the Department of Education. So what's the state of the Department of Education? Well, out there we've got a lot of unqualified teachers. There are some good ones who probably nobody's ever heard of because they're not on YouTube. Okay, so we have a challenge where some of the best teachers are probably nobody will ever find them, and some of the worst teachers are easy to find in 2 seconds. And you, the new person, has a lot of trouble telling which one's which anyway. Because you think if they're popular and everybody's following them, especially if you're brand new, 5 minutes out of a church, how do you know any different? Because you don't know enough to know what you don't know. See, I don't know if you can actually look back. Most of you are old enough to look back at what it was like to go from high school and earlier into college and to realize, wow, all that I did up to this point was to get me ready to handle what I'm doing now. Because I needed all that background for those first 12 years of education so I could really dig into learning about these subjects from the ability to apply them and use them in doing a career, being a part of society, and understanding the dynamics that are going on in the world around me. But that took 12 years of education just to get to college. Because the last year of high school is what, 12th grade, right? So it took that many years. And yet, you walk out of your Baptist, Methodist, Charismatic, whatever church that you walked out of, Catholic church, doesn't matter, and you're going to expect to understand this in a week, a month, a year. Because I've had people say to me, oh, I've been doing this a long time. Oh, how long? Oh, 8 months. 8 months? Well, because it didn't take them that long to figure out how to stop eating pork and switch to Saturday from Sunday and stop doing Christmas and whatever. It didn't take that long. But they're still thinking like where they came from. They're through that filter of their denominational background. And then what do? Some of these people become teachers because they already were teachers, or they've always wanted to be a teacher, and now they've got their opportunity, and because YouTube allows anybody to be a teacher. All you got to do is make a video, you're a teacher. And if you have a personality that works for people, you might be popular. Next thing you know, you're speaking at conferences. And you've only been doing this 5 years, 3 years, 4 years. And probably a lot of the ones that you see that are like, oh, but this one's been doing it 6, 7 years. Well, but how long have they been teaching it in public? 4. So that means that they were 2 years of not teaching at the most, because some of them probably were teaching, you just didn't know about it on YouTube. 2 years where they were maybe learning stuff, and then boom, they haven't grown a bit probably or a whole lot since they started picking up the mic for the next 4 years. Because to learn, you have to sit under. Because the system is designed for you to need a teacher. You can only go so far without one. You can argue with me all day long, that's fine. I don't mind. You'll learn the difference at some point. The reality is the reality. He designed it. You can't argue against it and win. You can argue against it all you want, but you won't win. He purposely has not allowed every one of us to just have an instant understanding. He didn't just turn on a light switch and switch that switch, and now you understand everything. That's only happened once. When do you see that in Scripture? When Yeshua shows up after his resurrection, and he turns on the light bulb for all of the disciples to show them about himself in the Scriptures. You see this at the end of the Gospels. But even then, he showed them. It still took a being showing them. He didn't just really throw the light switch. He showed them. Now remember, the Ruach was available. For those who didn't think it was always available, it was always available. But hey, Yeshua's already been resurrected. This is already after Acts chapter 2. And he still had to come and he showed them about himself in the Scriptures as a teacher. If you don't need a teacher, why do you even need the Bible? The Ruach's just going to show you. So why do you need to read what Yeshua said or Paul said or anybody said? This is a teacher in a format. It's a textbook. If you were doing homeschooling, right, this would be like, or going to college, well, it's a textbook. This is your textbook. But we don't think we need teachers. So what's the Department of Education state? It's a mess. That's what I said 5 years ago when it was this 2-year anniversary. It's still a mess. Why? Because we're not organized. If you're a Baptist or a Methodist or a Lutheran or any denomination, they're organized enough as a larger group by small churches that pool together their resources to have schools, seminaries, places of education to train up people to think like they think, to understand the verses like they understand them. Where are the places to go to understand a Torah observance from a Messianic point of view that's not being filtered through a Christian denominational mindset? Where do we go? Now, why don't we? Some of you are like, well, when are you going to start a yeshiva? We want to. Guess what? It takes resources. Oh, there he goes. He's asking for money. I'm not asking for money. We will build it when we can. If you want to send some money for it, fine. I'm not asking for any. But I'm simply explaining to you what the problem is. We're all small groups not working together. That's why we started MTOI. What's the motto of MTOI? Working together, all these little groups that want to work together to serve the body more effectively, which would include the pooling of our resources so that we could do things like have a yeshiva. It's a place to train up teachers who understand Scripture from a minimally filtered point of view. Notice I didn't say unfiltered because I don't think that's possible. Okay? But at least hopefully more minimally filtered. But that takes resources. First of all, you have to have teachers to teach. That's a resource. So here's the catch-22. You need a yeshiva to train up teachers, but you need teachers to have a yeshiva. That's fun. Little dynamic right there. And yeah, you could set up something online, but you know what? It's much more effective, brick and mortar. So you need a place where people could come and they could stay for a year or 6 months or something and get some training. And they could do the rest of it hopefully online or come back and forth. Because it's very hard. Here's the other problem. How many people who come into this as adults can just stop what they're doing, still pay their bills, and go get an education? Nobody really. Do you know how many full-time people there are in the Messianic that their congregations can be able to support a full-time person? Very few. You know how many congregations own a building? Even less. And so how can you do the things you need to do without those things? Every church, has 5 or 6 pastors. I mean, I've been to some where like, well, no, that pastor you met, he's not the one you need to talk to about the building. He's his other one. And no, they got like 5, 6, 7 pastors, assistant pastors, associate pastors. How many buildings they have, and they're building new ones and breaking ground all the time. I'm not jealous of it. I'm just saying is they can do things because they have resources that are pooled together. And yet we don't. And so we're starting to with MTOI. That's part of the reason why we started MTOI in 2013 or 14. Okay? I think 13. And so let's understand that when we talk about education, we would love to provide that kind of education. But look what we're already doing. We are already providing 600 plus people with CDs every month who are subscribers to the CDs by mail. These are people that have trouble. Mostly, I know a lot of people do like them also to collect them, whatever, and I appreciate that you want to do that, but you know what? If you don't need to have a collection, if you just access online, please save us the expense. We spent $56,000 last year on CDs. And we're not complaining. I had no idea until last week because we just go and do it without even caring. Okay? As long as there's enough money to do it, we just keep doing it. It's when we have our new accountant who said to me, by the way, would you like to know what you spent last year on CDs? I said, sure. And then when she told me, I was like, oh, that's great, I guess. I don't know. $56,000 shipping CDs out. And we don't charge for any of them. So from our part of the Department of Education, we try to make things available as free as we can. How many videos do we have on YouTube now, Marty? I think it's over 1,100. Somebody could look it up because you have all the smaller videos and all the other things. I think it's over 1,000 videos now. Robert, can you look it up? Maybe, or is that going to mess you up in what you're doing? Give it a shot, okay? But I think it's well over 1,000 videos. Now, that's not bragging or anything. That's our effort to provide education. It's all free, okay? And that's part of our mission statement. You looked it up? 1,100, so it is 1,100, okay? See, that's what. Leave it to the millennial to look it up and be able to find it quickly. All right? So this is part of our mandate that we felt from the beginning was to provide people the resources they need and to do it for free. And so we've never charged for the teachings, never will. Put them out there on every platform we can find to get them out there. So that's trying to help educate, the body. Let's talk about the Department of Energy. Some of you are thinking, I don't know, what's that have to do with electricity? No, it's not about that. I'm going to turn it around a little bit like I did last time, which is, what's your energy level like? Where are you putting all of your energy into? What are you pouring your energy into things that are fruitful or fruitless? Or do you feel energized, or do you feel tired and just worn out? And do you understand what I'm saying? Lackadaisical, complacent, or do you have energy and you're driven and you're excited and you're motivated? Because some of you remember when you first started learning this stuff, that's what you were. And then you couldn't sustain it very long. But you got to find that. It's kind of like what it talks about in Scripture about leaving your first love. Why would he talk about that? Because you act differently when you're first in love. Then you're married for 15, 20 years, it's not the same. But it should be. Because after all, it's the same person that you felt that way about 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, but you already got them, you won them over, they married you, and blah, 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 blah. But yet, there was that moment, those times when that was your first love. That you had that energy, that excitement. You thought about them all the time, and you were excited about when you got to see. Are you that way about the Torah? Are you that way about the Scripture? Are you that way about the congregation? Are you that way about what the Father's doing in your life? Check your energy level. Some of you need to get really scared and nervous because I'm getting my sleep problem fixed and then I will get sleep. And you don't want to know, I don't even want to know what that's going to look like when I actually get sleep. Be afraid. Be very afraid. This is me on no sleep that you've been seeing for 55 years, okay? I can't wait to see what it'd be like to have the energy of when I get sleep. All right? Okay? Anyway. So one of the things I want to ask you with the Department of Energy stuff is, are you exerting yourself? Are you putting energy into things that are wasting your time? That are taking that energy and putting it in the wrong places? You can only answer that question. I can't answer it for you. But how much time do you spend in your electronics? On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, playing stupid games, whatever it is. Some of you spend a lot of time on YouTube, but it's not watching teachings all the time. It's a lot of other stuff. Okay? Are we aware of the amount of energy we are expending in the wrong places? You know, Yahweh says he wants all your heart, might, and strength. There's a lot of energy in there. So where are you pouring your energy into? Because the body, I think, has a real energy crisis. Okay, because we're not putting it in the right places. What about the Department of Department of Defense? Some of you are right in there in that Department of Defensiveness. All right, let's understand. I know there's a song that we sing that's called "He Is My Defense." Okay, well, he says Yeshua says these things. Yahweh says these things. We see this throughout the Scripture that He's our shield, He's our defense, He's our protector, He's our shelter, He's our covering. Nowhere does it say that He needs you to defend Him. And so let's be careful with that. You stand up for Him, meaning when it's your turn, when someone says they want to push you to break Torah, and you stand up and say, no, I can't do that. That's standing up for Him. You don't need to stand up for Him in my life. You need to stand up for Him in your life. Because some people think, oh, well, I saw my neighbor doing this or my friend doing that, and I need to stand up for Yahweh. No, you don't. Well, I'm concerned about them. Fine. Talk to them nicely about the situation. Don't give them grief and attack them or whatever. Or come to the leadership and say, I'm concerned about so-and-so, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention, so maybe you can help them. There may be somebody that actually has a relationship with them where they can then go in and work with them because it's an agreed-upon relationship. You want to be effective in someone's life, you must have the appropriate relationship to do that. And so some of the people you want to create change in, you don't have the right relationship with them to do that. So let's be careful with that Department of Defense. And then the other side is that defensiveness. Oh, are we defensive? It doesn't take much for us to get all defensive about everything. But you know what? You don't like it when you see your Christian friends do that when you start telling them about some Torah stuff, and they get all defensive. Oh, you're judging me. Oh, this and that and whatever. We get really quick to go on the defense. So let's be careful with that. That ties in with the Department of Justice. Because some of you get all defensive and you get all involved because you want justice. Well, it's not right what they're doing, and it's not right what he said, and it's not right. It's not your job to judge what's right and what's wrong. It's your job to use discernment. It's your job to use discernment. Look, just like in the chat boxes that I can't read during Bible study, I can't read your lips from here either. It's not your job to judge. It's your job to use discernment. Okay? What does discernment ask us to do? To look and evaluate whether or not we should be involved or interacting with what we see happening. That's not judging the situation as far as, well, they're evil, wrong, and sinning. It's simply saying, I don't know why they're doing what they're doing, but I probably don't need to be doing it. That's discernment. Judging would be then going to your friend saying, did you know that so-and-so was doing such and such? And can you believe that? Now you're judging, Lashon Hara, everything. Better you should have seen it and decided, I probably don't need to be there. Or you're already it's happening around you and you decide to extricate yourself out and walk away. But we want justice. Well, that's just wrong. That's not right. I got to stand up. It's unfair. Got to remember that once you did that, you jumped in the judge seat and you decided what's right and what's wrong. So that's why he says, there's a verse that says something. What's that? Oh, justice, vengeance, all those things, who do they belong to? Who's the right and just God? Our Elohim, Yahweh, our Elohim, right? So, but we want justice. Okay, he'll bring justice, but not on your terms and in your timing and his way. A lot of times people don't understand when they read Scripture, and Israel goes through those lands to get to the land, and they're clearing out some of the peoples there, and they're like, why would they do those mean things to those people? Well, actually, they were rendering justice, judgment from the Elohim of the universe on those peoples for things that we may not even have any idea what they did. But he was using them to render his judgment. And it could have been things they had done years earlier. But this is how he decided his timing to do it. So, but we want justice. How about the Department of the Treasury? Well, we already talked a lot about that. We already know we're all broke and need to work harder in figuring out how to not be broke and how we can deal with our funds that he gives us the stewardship for. So I'm not going to go into that anymore. But it does tie into the Department of Labor. You know, we have a lot of people underemployed or unemployed that we deal with on a regular enough basis. We at MTOI actually help people find jobs the best we can. We do find opportunities. It's amazing how many people, though, at times when we offer them things, turn them down because, well, you know, I don't really want to do that. But you're not doing anything. Why do you have such a little attitude, your nose up in the air about whatever it is? You're not paying your bills now. Go get that job. If you don't like it, while you have that job, look for another one. At least you can pay the bills in the meantime. But, you know, we're not taught the drive to work. You know, I don't mean the drive like in your car, but that drive, that effort. You go back generations, and there was a lot more of there was a caring about the quality of the work, of doing the job right, of having your name on what you do, your reputation. Now we've got generations who just want to get to work, get out of work, and get home, and that's it. They don't care as long as they get, is it 5 o'clock yet? Is my shift over? Instead of being there to be the best possible employee. That's why there are so many verses about things like the hirelings and how they work and what they do and their attitudes. Because after all, we are servants of the Most High. And we have to be diligently about our business. But we don't like that word labor. Ugh, labor. You know, that's why they call what a woman goes through labor. It's painful. It's no fun. It's an effort. It's a struggle. But you know what? It builds character in you. It develops a strength in you. And you know what? As awful as it is when you're going through that labor, not just the women, but people in general, oh, you're working so hard, but after you're done and you feel good and satisfied about what you've accomplished because you can see the end result, like a woman with her baby who probably said to her husband, remind me I never want to do this again. And then after they have the baby, like, can we have another one? They forget because it was worth it. But I think we don't think of these things as being worth it. It's a struggle. Yeshua said, I work, my Father works, you need to work. And we do. And I'm not trying to pick on everybody. A lot of you guys out there are working as hard as you can, I get it. But you know what? You may need to have somebody to counsel with you to help you open up the possibilities of doing other things. Things that you never even realized you could probably do and make a better, not only living for yourself in terms of money, but maybe enjoy what you're doing more. Because there's a lot of people out there hate what they're doing. Okay? How about the Department of Health and Human Services? Oh, yeah, we got a lot of sickness and illness and all kinds of things going on. Look, I struggle with that cough. Remember that? I haven't coughed a lot in a while there. I'm finally getting better, but it was a struggle. And we do have a lot of people that we talk to that are struggling with health issues, whether it's things as horrible as cancer or things that are in the body that are like joints and knees and hips and backs and other things that are out. And so they can't do certain things because they're in pain all the time. We've had people breaking things and bones and feet and ankles and stuff and arms. All kinds of things happening on with the health. but it helps to have a body there to nurture you, care for you, provide for you, make sure you're okay. And so we even have those things going on in the body. How about the Department of Housing and Urban Development? You know, even here at MTOI, we actually spend quite a bit of time trying to help people find housing. We got people that, you know, they are moving to the area. They need housing. We got people that get married, and maybe that creates a housing problem. We got people that move, maybe a roommate leaves, that creates a housing problem. Maybe something happens with your economics and you need to upgrade or downgrade. So, yeah, we have all kinds of things with housing and issues that have to relate it to housing. And so that's one of the things that, look, we've had a family almost every month move here for the last couple of months. And more are coming. And we're excited about that. And no, you're not all numbers to me. Like, hey, I'm just excited because you were the January family. Okay? We're always excited when you guys come. Now, bear in mind, my personality is not one of warm fuzzies and coming to spend, you know, dinners and lunches with you and everything else. Okay? I mean, how many people do you think had Moses over for lunch or for dinner? You know, I'm just saying that it just wasn't, some people's personality is just not that way. I'm not trying to compare myself to him in terms of his leadership. I'm saying personality-wise, I think we're similar in some ways. Okay, we have our issues, we have our you know, we're not the warm, fuzzy type, and we're get our anger issues and other things like that. And so I'm just saying that you just got to understand that I'm growing and developing those areas, and I struggle with those things. So you have to create leeway with the people that you are dealing with in the congregation that may have issues like that too. Some people are very shy. Some people are over the top exuberant, and that may irritate you almost as much as the person who's shy. I'm just saying because there are things that if they're different from you, it's uncomfortable. Right? And so we got to adjust to those things. And when we have people moving and they're coming and joining the area, guess what they bring? A whole new dynamic in. And sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. If the group is big enough, they will find that little part of the group that they sort of are most naturally a fit with. And that's great. Smaller groups, it's more tough to find those people that actually you match well with. Right? All right. Well, this is an interesting one. What am I going to say about this? The Department of the Interior. Okay, go listen to the heart of the matter. That'll deal with the interior. I know that's not what that department's about. I know it's about things like parks and everything else. But, okay, so we're going to deal with the interior. Okay, work on the heart of the matter teaching. All right, Department of Transportation. Oh, my goodness. We've had everybody's car break down or blow up or whatever in the last month. Unbelievable how many cars we must have in this group. This congregation is like not even 100 people, and we probably have lost like 10 cars in the last month. It is just an incredible thing. All right, Department of State. You know, I guess one of the ways we could talk about that is, you know, the inability of congregations to work together, to interact with each other. Well, because, you know, they don't believe this thing that we believe, or, do you know, they believe that other thing that, so we can't talk to them. It's like us saying, well, we can't talk to whatever country because of whatever, you know. That's the thing that blows my mind the most, that people get mad at whoever's in charge, whether it was going back to other presidents years ago to even today, they get mad that that president will actually talk to a country we have a problem with. How are you ever going to fix it without talking to them? It seems absurd. Well, you know, we don't like what they're doing, so we can't talk to them. How are you ever going to influence that situation if you never talk to them? It's dumb. Well, same thing with even within the body. We don't talk to each other. There's like 3 or 4 other groups that came out of this group in this area that we never talked to us. Some of them talk to each other a little bit, but they never talk to us. We all believe in the same Messiah. We believe in the same witness, word, scripture, Torah. Oh, but we have personality problems. See, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. People wrecking the whole deal. You know, the pastor that performed my wedding said to me, and I said this story before, but, you know, I when I first came into ministry, I asked him for advice, and he said, best, most fulfilling job you could ever have. As a matter of fact, it'd be absolutely perfect if we could just figure out how to get the people out of it. And then with his thick British accent, he said, don't let the buggers get you down. We're bringing people into the mix. It's already screwed up. Let's see. The Department of Agriculture. We could actually talk about that. We are in the process of, well, we just approved a garden somewhere on the property, but that's not what I'm talking about. We're in the process of getting a few hundred acres, not too far from here, that has already been used to grow lots of crops and has been very good for agriculture. It's actually zoned for agriculture. And if we get this property, we will grow stuff. And we'll actually be able to sell it and have a revenue stream that could help support things like a yeshiva. Okay? So we'll have that going on. And, we might even do a little thing like, there's a group that does this agricultural Torah teaching stuff out in the West Coast. Well, maybe we could do something similar over here, where we bring in teenagers and young adults and have them work and learn Torah through the agricultural model, which is a scriptural model. I mean, most of Scripture is taught through the agricultural metaphor, okay? And so that's something we could do here once we have the property. So keep that in prayer. I mean, and by the way, we do have enough money to buy this property, not to do anything with it once we buy it, but we could buy this property. But keep that in prayer, if that's something Father wants us to do. We're in negotiations about that right now. How about the Department of Commerce? I find that an interesting one for us in the body because I think that's where the body goes off in the wrong direction as they try to treat this like a business. Commerce, we need to sell stuff and make money. Now, I did say if we had crops, well, that's different. You could work and have a product. But I'm talking about selling teaching, selling anointed hankies and anointed this and whatever they're doing in ministries out there, and selling their books and their DVDs and their all that other stuff. I think it's great that we're getting materials out to people. I just don't like that we're turning it into commerce. Okay? Oh, but you guys sell stuff on your website. Only stuff that you could want that you don't need. Okay? Yeah, we have these coins, right? For Pidyon Ben or for whatever. And we sell them. Okay, great. We have scriptures. We have Bibles on our website. You know what? I don't think there's too many people out there that don't have a Bible. Oh, but they'd like this one. Okay, well, if you'd like this one, you don't need this one. We'll sell it to you. It costs us money. We don't really make hardly anything on them. As a matter of fact, there are people that contact us occasionally who don't have one, and we mail them it. We have people that are on government disability and that kind of thing that don't have a Bible, and we'll mail them one. And so commerce, we have shofars on our website, but again, that's a luxury item. You don't need to get one from me, and certainly don't have to get a big fancy one. You get a little one for like $50 without any problem. And so it's the commerce of the teachings and of the materials that you need that bothers me more. Okay? There really should be a way to get those things to people and allow them to, we read that today in Exodus 25, that their hearts could be moved to support that effort. And let them support it we have people out of the $56,000 worth of CDs that we shipped out, some of those people write checks and send them in. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But you know what? We don't care, and it's fine. But there are those whose hearts are moved. And by the way, a lot of them who get them, they can't afford to send. Their hearts are moved. They're just on government disability, and they have no money or whatever it is, and they can't. And it breaks their hearts that they can't. But we're very blessed that we're able to have the funds, because the rest of you that tithe and offer that help us support what we're doing are able to provide these things for people for free. We have somebody that does all these fancy videos you get to see. He needs to pay his bills. We pay him a salary. We got fancy cameras that we have to shoot the filming and all that kind of stuff. And that costs money. And you guys help support that. The Father inspires you and it moves your heart to help get this work done so we can provide things for people for free. We don't have subscriber fees or website memberships. So there's no commerce going on that way. I'm available, Robert's available. Why? Because we're also able to have the ability to feed our families and pay for shelter and stuff because of the salaries we're able to get because of the funds that come in so that we can be available to you 24/7. And we can tell you for a fact that there are times that we get calls anytime within the 24. And absolutely every day of the 7. But some of you think, well, there's not supposed to be full-time ministry. Until you need one, you'll say that. You might think a little differently the day you need one. Because some of you have got teachers and leaders, or you've had them in the past, who taught on Shabbat but had full-time jobs, and you couldn't reach them on a Wednesday when you had an emergency at 3 in the afternoon. What are you going to do? Because the emergencies aren't going to come up at a convenient time to you. But we're able to do these things because why? Because of the Father inspiring things to happen, and that funds what we're doing, but we're not doing it as commerce. Okay? We're not doing it as commerce. We have a yeshiva. I promise you the yeshiva will not be a money-making enterprise. The only thing that it might cost is to offset the cost of housing the person and the materials. We will not charge you for the education. Because that's, again, something that's needed. You know, we have a very wise person that I met once many years ago. He was just turned 65 years old, and one of the things he taught me was that he didn't like when people charged for things because they were already determining what the thing was worth, and maybe he wanted to give them more. But now that they put a price tag on it, they were only going to get what they said. So if I gave him a teaching on a CD, he may decide that teaching was worth $50. He may decide it wasn't worth anything. But if I had put a price of $5 on that CD, that's all, you know. In other words, you understand what I'm saying? But what he always said to me was, if I need it, you should give it to me. If I want it, you should charge for it. It's okay. If it's something I just want, I don't really need it, sure, you could sell it to me. But if I need it, why would you keep something away from somebody who needs it? Need is a big thing. We give away the teachings because I really think you need them. Not you particularly, but there are people in the greater, whoever's listening, that need them. So we make them free. No commerce. All right. Department of Homeland Security. All right, everybody's got their concealed carry permits, and we're all good. We're all packing and carrying, and we're good. I'm teasing. Look, we know who our protector is. We know who's got us covered. No weapon formed against us shall prosper. We have to just keep in line with him. That's our main thing, is let's not get caught up with that we need to have so much stuff packed up in cans in our basement or so much gold and silver hoarded up or whatever it is. Sure, I think it's a good idea to have a certain amount of days of something put aside because there can be short-term, interim emergencies that you could be without food for a week or two. My wife and I have been in places where the power went out and you couldn't get anything for a week or two. Fortunately, we were able to go someplace else until that finished, but if we couldn't, we would have been really in a hard place without power and no food. Whatever we had in the house, a lot of it was in the refrigerator spoiled when the power went out. And a lot of the rest of the food that wasn't spoiled would only last so long. But, you know, think about how much of your food you go to the refrigerator for versus the cabinet. So once that power goes out, you're going to lose all that stuff within a day. If you actually start opening the refrigerator, you lose it faster. And so, yeah, it'd be a good idea to have some stuff on hand, but let's not get distracted. Whatever's going to happen, this is the one thing I can promise you, I feel stronger than anything else that the Father has told me, whatever that means. Okay, I didn't hear a voice. Is teach them to do what they're supposed to do, and they'll be where they're supposed to be. I've said that for 20 years. You can ask my wife. I've always said that. So when people ask me, what about end times, and what about, eschatology, and what about Daniel and Matthew 24 and blah, 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 I say, why are you focused on that if you haven't figured out how to do what you're supposed to do? The only thing that's going to keep you safe in whatever that is, whether you figure it out or not, is doing what you're supposed to do. So focus on, you want Homeland Security? Focus on Torah observance, in covenant, in the right heart, with the fruit of the Spirit. That is the only place you're going to find your security. Just keep that in mind. And then we have promises that we will be safe. And even if we're martyred, we have promises that that's going to still be okay. After all of our heroes, not all, but a good many of them were martyred. You see all the apostles. You see Yeshua himself. But yet, for all of them, we know it's going to be okay. You have to know that. Okay, the last one. Wow, we've gone over an hour. Last one, the Department of Veterans Affairs. You know what the body's not doing? And even within some of the churches, but the body's not doing, is taking care of those that are getting older. You know? And we want to make sure that we are taking care of those, like the Rabbi Toms and Rebbes and Joannes, and the others in the body as they get older, especially if they've been in leadership or in ministry, because you know what? They're not provided with a pension. They're not provided with a retirement plan. They only receive whatever the federal government gives them as far as Social Security, whatever other things. But if they've been doing ministry their whole life, you know, unless they were able to work it all out for themselves, where's the body? What is the body doing to take care of those people, the veterans of the body? That's an important thing I think that we need to be doing, you know. Okay, so hopefully that helps us to get a better sense of the state of the body. Now look, I'm very optimistic. The body is growing slowly, but it's getting there. And we're starting to get more and more serious about things. And there's some, you know, culling out that happens, you know, as far as the, you know, every now and then Abba shakes the tree, so all the fruit and nuts just sort of fall out, and we kind of clean house a little bit, okay? That's why we're told to cling and cleave and hold on tight. But just understand that as long as human beings are still running all these departments, they're not going to be flowing perfectly. And that's the way it's going to be till Yeshua gets here. And so we have to do the best we can within the very flawed system. I'm not even talking about our, you know, outside government system, I mean within the body. We have to understand that no matter how good we do this, we're still doing it as human beings. And that means that it's going to be a little struggle, a little rough. But if we are patient and filled with the Ruach and having love, joy, peace, patience, all that other stuff, just maybe we'll get there in a right attitude and be successful in helping others to see why we're going and they'll want to join and go forward with us. Okay, and I'm not just talking about MTOI, I mean as far as Torah observant Israelites who are trying to walk this out in the context of Messiah. That we can, people will see this as something that has, why are they happy when everybody else is upset? Why are they not stressed when everybody else is stressed? Why do they seem to be at peace when we're all going crazy? We should have something that they want. And they could be drawn to that and say, what in the world's going on? Why are you, you know, whatever. Because there's going to be crises and chaos and confusion, and we could be that calm in the storm, and they'll look at us like, why don't you seem to be worried? Because this is just stuff. I'm not worried about this stuff. I've already got a bigger plan and a bigger picture I'm working on. I'm not worried about all this stuff. See, but we get too emotionally attached to the stuff and not emotionally attached enough to Him. That's where our problem is in the body. All right, Father, we come before you, and we do recognize that while this was a somewhat humorous but somewhat serious endeavor here, that ultimately we are looking towards your government, not any government of the world or of MTOI or any other thing, but we're looking forward to the only way that this can work, which is for you to send your Son in power and glory and honor with his rod of iron to rule and reign and to set all things straight. So, Father, we thank you for showing us this information, and showing us and revealing to us what's coming in the future, and giving us the path that leads to that future successfully. Father, help us to truly embrace what we can do and what we should do and what we shouldn't do and what we can't do, so that we can walk in your ways and be pleasing in your sight. So, Father, we want to thank you, give you praise, glory, and honor in the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 Off from there, unless Marty already turned it off. What was that? Oh, it's back on? Okay. You're getting so big I can't even stand behind you. I know, I was getting the left. Stand up. Come here, darling. All right, so this is officially the remnant. I'm teasing. All those Beth Shalomers that had to go home with their babies and stuff are like, don't be mean to us. I'm kidding. Keep your feelings bag out, fill them up, okay. I got to throw these guys an extra special something because they stayed. Okay. You ready for us, Marty? All right, so on 3, we're going to do Rosh Chodesh Sameach. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Rosh Chodesh Sameach. We love you. See you on Shabbat.